you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon with you. Welcome to your weekend. I am back for a week before I take the next few weeks off. We'll get into that later. Okay. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by the Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. We're also brought to you by Playground. Step into the world-renowned poker experience at Playground, where free food and drinks at cash game tables, a bad beat jackpot, weekly promotions, daily tournaments, and unmatched customer service await you. Why play anywhere else? Just minutes away from downtown Montreal, across the Mercier Bridge. Playground. Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct and go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan the QR code right there to join the action. Must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. Secure offers a fun and unique culture with great earnings potential, plus no experience is necessary. There are two ways to apply. Either head over to Life at Secure on Instagram and tap apply now, or text apply now with your name and phone number to 514-909-8344. Come work at Secure. That's Secure with a K. Apply today. Start tomorrow. We're also brought to you by, finally, La Bittt Tibi Beer. La Bittt Tibi has launched their ultra new lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer for those cool fall days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in groceries and dépanneurs across the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. Okay, before we get going on this episode, I have to promote this, because the main host, the man, the reason why you watch this show and you tolerate me, Tony Marinaro, has started a new podcast with the Sick Podcast. It's the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro in French. That's right. Tony now does a radio show in French. He does a podcast in French, and he does this podcast in English. There's literally nothing this man cannot do when it comes to podcasting. Anyways, so let's get going. Let's bring him in. He's my usual Friday guest. He's Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how we doing?
I'm doing really well, and I'm glad to know Tony survived his on radio rant the other day about the Canadiens. I thought he might have a heart attack at one point, but
yeah, so
Tony at his best.
You know, that's the thing. For those of you who haven't seen it, just look up Tony Marinaro Pet Sacoche on YouTube. It's 18 minutes. It's a great rant, honestly. You know, forget the entertainment value. What he's actually saying is completely true, and I agreed with all of it. But it's very, very funny. Would highly suggest after this episode you go check that out on YouTube. Stu, listen. Just because I've been away, it doesn't mean I haven't been watching the Habs. But with the way they've been playing, it kind of makes me wish I wasn't watching them.
Yeah, well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's tough because we talk so much. And over the summer, how many times have we said to each other, we could count on one hand how many times in Martin St. Louis' tenure or in last season to the season before, how many times this team just came out flat. And frankly, it feels like every game they've come out flat so far this season.
Yeah, and at practice day, he was asked about sort of the emotion of the team and how it seems different from last season. Marc Defour, the Journal, asked Marty that they just don't seem to have the same enthusiasm as they had last year at this point. And as Marty said, last year at this point, they were also 4-2-1 instead of 2-4-1. So that's going to make it a little bit more enthusiastic. But, he also knows there's only 18 players on the ice at practice today. They are banged up. I mean, they're missing Laine, they're missing Goalie, they're missing Slavkovsky, they're missing Barron now. I mean, the list goes on and on. That definitely plays into it. Marty kept saying, we're only 7 games in. We're only 7 games in. He said that several times. So I think a lot of fans are starting to react the way Tony reacted on his radio show, that there was a lot of hope coming into this season, right? When they got Laine and, at the golf tournament, we're going to be in the mix. That's the goal. We're going to be in the mix for the playoffs. And, now they look like they're more in the mix to get the number 1 draft pick again next year. And it's only 7 games that they play the Blues Saturday. Blues are a good team. They travel to Philadelphia after the game. They play the Flyers Sunday. The Canes are horrible in back-to-back situations, or they have been. They're going to go up against Michkov on Sunday for the first time. Claude Julien is back at the Bell Center tomorrow night for the first time since he was fired by the Canadiens. He's an assistant coach with the Blues now. If they end up 0-9, if they after 9 games they end up 2-5-1 or whatever, 2-6-1, is it still only 9 games? Like, the season once the season starts, it comes at you really quick. And it is only 7 games, but there's a lot of reasons for concern. Like, they're giving up 35 shots a game, which is the most in the NHL. They're getting 25.6 shots on goal per game, which is the 4th worst. They're struggling in their own end. The goaltending hasn't been great. And there's not a lot of reason for hope right now. Pierre LeBrun reported yesterday on TSN that, Kent Hughes is making calls already, looking into possible trade options. It's hard to do that at this time of the year. But I think Canadiens fans are upset. I've been on Twitter, people, that's it. I'm done with this team. I've invested too much stuff. Of course, if they win Saturday and Sunday, we'll be talking a different story next week. But, before the season started, we talked on this podcast and I wrote in my columns, I didn't think this team was close to being a playoff team. I thought maybe in the mix if everything went well. And that was before Laine even got hurt. But with the injuries they have now and the lack of offense, you're just not going to win games. And you're looking at before Joel Armia, Dvorak, Evans, Doc, Kapanen, 0 goals for all of them. 5 forwards, 0 goals. Anderson, Newhook, and Slavkovsky, 1 goal each. So that's 3 goals out of 8 of your forwards after 7 games. And, you're just not going to win that way. And, but Arbor Xhekaj has sort of been Marty's whipping boy earlier this year. He's going to get back in the lineup Saturday against the Blues because of the injury to Barron. But things are sort of falling apart quickly after what was a lot of positivity during the offseason.
So what really maddens me is you hit it, is that it's so frustrating to watch this team right now because you could look at the stat sheet and go, what's there to complain about? Slavkovsky is a point per game player. Nick Suzuki, not Nick Suzuki. Cole Caulfield is on fire. Looks like he's going to score 40 goals this year. And Nick Suzuki is looking like last year's Nick Suzuki, just by the stat sheet. But you watch them play, and it's almost amazing that they're able to put up points because Caulfield could shoot the puck like nobody. So he's really carrying the load for Suzuki and Slavkovsky, maybe taking the load off them. But when you watch, it's like one phrase goes through my mind the entire time. And, Tony swore the other day on the podcast for the first time. He dropped an F-bomb. I'm not going to drop an F-bomb, but look like you give a shit. Seriously, look like you care, because this team just looks so disinterested in playing hockey right now. It's the fourth and third lines that are the only ones that they look like, that they care out there, because frankly, they're playing for spots in the lineup. But the first 2 lines, they know they're pretty much cemented up there. So they don't look like they're too interested. And, I'm not going to, I've said it before. I've always said, and I've said to you many times, and maybe I was jumping the gun, but I got a little excited, which was, if you remember, I would always say, I'm excited to see what it's going to look like when the games start to matter for Martin St. Louis. And this came from the team. They want to be in the mix. That's not outside noise of the media, of fans placing expectations. That's the organization saying, we want to be in the mix. Games matter now. And this team just looks so disinterested in playing hockey right now.
Well, at the golf tournament, management, Jeff Molson, Kent Hughes, Gorton, they all came out, and in the mix was the mantra, right? In the mix of the playoffs. And I thought it was a fair mantra to have. I think that was a realistic goal. The players weren't saying in the mix. The players are saying, we're going to make the playoffs. We want to make the playoffs. We're going to be in the playoffs. And they're probably frustrated right now, as the fans are, when they see their record and they see the injuries also, and losing so many key players. Caden Goalie hasn't even skated since he was hurt in that game against the Kings. I think there's just a frustration level, and there might be a bit of I'm speculating here, there might be a bit of a frustration level in that, this hybrid defensive system that Marty St. Louis preaches and is working with doesn't seem to work. And maybe the players are getting frustrated with it the same way when Dominic Ducharme was coaching and the players were really frustrated with his system, which wasn't working, and kept asking him to change it. And he wouldn't. And then Jeff Petrie was the voice of the team that went public and saying, this isn't working. This hybrid system doesn't look like it's working for the Canadiens. They're running around their own end. They can't get out of their own end. It seems like it's too complicated maybe for them. Maybe in Marty St. Louis has a brilliant hockey mind. He sees the game differently than others do, like same as Wayne Gretzky did. Wayne Gretzky wasn't a great coach, partly because I don't think players couldn't see the game the way he saw it when he was with Arizona. And I'm starting to wonder if the systems that Marty has are maybe just too complicated, especially for a young team. For young guys who Arbor Jack guys, he's lost his swagger now. He's on the playing afraid to make a mistake. And we went through years and years and years of young Canadiens prospects being afraid to make mistakes, and we saw how that damaged their development. And so you got to wonder if that's factoring into it. They're getting frustrated running around on their own end all the time. One of the news conferences this week, Marty said that game against the Islanders when they were stuck in their own end for 4 minutes, I think it was, after Kapanen broke his stick. And Marty said, if I was the other team, I wouldn't have been happy with that because, we didn't give them anything. They went around and around. Okay, but they went around and around and around. Those 5 guys on the ice were friggin' exhausted afterwards. That'll kill you just getting stuck in your own zone. But it's not just that one time. It seems to be happening over and over and over. And you can see it breaking down. Like from the press box, you watch and you see, okay, it's sort of the man on man, and then they switch to zone, and you sort of see guys, okay, now they look totally out of sync, and you go, okay, it's going to be a while here before they get the puck out of their zone. And you can see it coming, especially from up high in the press box. You can see it coming, and it's coming too often. And at some point, if it's not working, you got to change it and maybe just dumb it down a bit and just go to a straight zone defense in the defensive zone, at least until give the guys some confidence in their own end. It seems like they don't play with any confidence in their own end. And, you factor in the other day with the goaltending, Sam Montembeault wasn't great, and Caden Primo was lucky. I think he had like 4 or 5 goalposts behind him. He kept looking behind him after almost every save he made, like he didn't know if he had stopped the puck or not. That's not a good sign. So there's a lot of reason for concern. There's a lot of reason for fans to be upset, and there's reason for Tony to go on the rant that he went on.
So, that's it for me. It's just there's so much for concern, and it just seems like, it might be harsh to say, because again, there's the side of me we're only 7 games into the season. However, we are in a season where they wanted to be in the mix. And frankly, to have the type of, I don't care who's in your lineup, to have the type of performance you had when you bring out an anniversary cup winning team, you see all these legends on the ice and what they mean to this city, and to come out like that. And to just, it's like the Rangers came in they didn't come in gangbusters. They didn't dominate the game. The Canadiens laid down and laid an egg. That's what happened. They did not focus, and that's what happens when you play in the NHL. I don't care what team comes into town. It could have been the freaking Pee Wee Double B Dollard Citadels. And, if you come out like that, you're gonna get destroyed. So,
another common theme this season, there's a lot of games they're not ready to play. It looks like they come out and they're off to a slow start, and this is a little shocking with Mark, because up until this point with Marty St. Louis, the thing was that the players fought hard, right? They battled everything, they worked hard, and that seems to be wearing off now. That we don't see that same compete level there. And you look at some of their sort of energy guys. Michael Pezzetta, healthy scratch for the first 6 games. Arbor Xhekaj, a healthy scratch for a couple of games. Two guys who, Michael Bozetta is not the greatest hockey player in the world, but he gives you everything he has every single time he's on the ice and can give a team a spark. There's a lot. It's not clicking. There's something. It seems like something's wrong right now. That I don't know how they're going to fix it. I mean, as Pierre LeBrun reported, that Kent Hughes is looking to make a trade and maybe to shake up the team a bit and some of the core guys that are there. You got to wonder if Arbor Xhekaj might be one of the guys. I know the Ottawa Senators would be first in line. Look at him if he becomes available. Michael Andlauer, their owner, is a huge fan of Xhekaj's. So it's going to be interesting to see. This is going to be a really interesting weekend. I can't see them I'd be shocked if they win Sunday because they're so bad on back-to-backs. And Primo is going to start Sunday against the Flyers. Montembeault is going to start against St. Louis. So I think this game against St. Louis is huge. I think they got to win that just to get some positive vibes going. If they can come out of this with a 1-1 split with the back-to-back, things won't look so horrible on Monday. And Monday's a day off for the Canadiens, or a scheduled day off for them. But if they lose both of these games and they're 2-6-1 after 9 games, it's hard for a good team to bounce back from a start like that. Never mind, a top team like Edmonton got off to a horrible start last season, but they had Draisaitl and McDavid. You're talking about how they sort of lay down there when they had that ceremony for the 1970s team, and they did lie down. And I tweeted when they were down 4-0 in the first period, I was like, these dynasty guys might be headed to Crescent Street now instead of watching the last 2 periods of this game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens now this weekend. It's a big weekend for them.
They're going to have between Tuesday and Saturday. That's what, 4 days, 5 days. You lay an egg on Saturday. Unacceptable, inexcusable, any word you want to throw out there. I don't care that it's 8 games into the season. With the way you started, the way you've looked, and now the heat that's on, if you lay an egg, unacceptable. I don't know what the solution is at that point.
Yeah.
Is it too early to start calling for firings and this, that? Maybe. But at the same time, what do you do? Because if you can't come back from that, I don't know what it is. Because what I'm interested to know is what's the message that Martin St. Louis is sending? Because the big chatter was, okay, I was in the building. They laid a massive egg against Pittsburgh. They got their first shot on goal 12 minutes into the game, and they even suffered the Bronx cheers. Against the LA Kings, my cousin was in the building. He calls me and goes, I cannot believe what I'm watching. The Islanders game, they fought back. Good on them. They deserve kudos for that because, they're on the road. They could easily lie down and, take that. But they fought back. And what I'm hearing on the chatter post-game is Martin St. Louis is sending a message to his veterans by not playing them in the shootout. Guess what? It didn't really look like they gave a shit that they weren't playing in the shootout or that they weren't playing at all. They were gliding out there, and they were lucky to get a Swiss cheese goal on I think it was Varlamov who started Caulfield scored a Swiss cheese goal, a banana to tie the game, and it sent it to overtime and then a shootout.
Yeah, and the game against the Rangers, buddy of mine, Pat McTurner, he's a longtime season ticket holder, and he texts me, you want to meet during the second intermission? I said, yeah, sure, okay. And then it's 4-0, and he texts me and says, let's meet after the first intermission because I'm going to be going home for the second intermission. And it's just the case we were saying with fans. I think fans are getting frustrated, especially fans like him who spend a lot of money on season tickets every year. You at least want to see them compete, right? And to come out the way they did with that 1970s dynasty team and that ceremony they had before the game, and Blake Lafleur up on the screen, saying, we love to win and we needed to win, something along those lines. And, we were talking earlier about the offensive problems. I remember it was quite a few years ago when Guy Lafleur said the Canadiens are a team with 3/4 lines. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways they are now too, right? I mean, they got one line that can score and 3 lines that can't. And that's at least 10 years ago that Guy Lafleur said that. So, new management, new everything else, but talking with Serge Savard before the game the other night, and he was telling me, he said, the Canadiens used to be you need Carey Price to steal a game, And Savard said, goalies don't steal games. You have to score goals. You have to score goals to win games, and the Canadiens can't score. And he mentioned that, when the Habs won the Cup in '93, they had 4 guys on the team who had 80 points. They haven't had any player get 80 points since Kovalev in 2007, 2008, I believe it was. And Savard was saying how, Laine is the type of guy that this team really needs. As Savard said, he's the first player they've had that's like a legitimate, like, possibility to score 50 goals since Stéphane Richer. Like, that's a long time ago too. So they got it. They have Michael Hage coming up, and they have Demidov coming up, and they've drafted well. And Savard made another great point. He said, you have to rebuild through the draft. You have to draft all these young guys and keep acquiring them and keep acquiring them and keep acquiring them. And then you reach a point where you got to turn them into a team. And the Canadiens are still a couple of years away from that. I mean, I said all along, I think they're at least 2 years away from being a legitimate playoff contender, and more than that from being a Stanley Cup contender. So they're acquiring all these young guys, and then once you get all the talent coming in, then you got to turn them into a team. But right now, this just looks like a confused team. I think confused might be the best word to say, and a team that lacks confidence, and it shows on the ice. It shows on the ice. It shows in net. Only 7 games, but are we going to be saying only 20 games? They got to turn this around like pretty quick. If there's any hope of being in the mix, so like that's fading pretty quickly, especially with the injuries.
And last year we saw teams like Nashville go from last and jolt into a playoff spot. And let me tell you, I watched that Nashville Predators team in the playoffs. I went to that game where they lost against the Canucks, got eliminated, and I remember when it was confirmed that we were going to that game because the Canucks had to win, or the Predators had to win Game 5. I looked up their roster on Daily Faceoff, and I'm like thinking to myself, oh my God, they must be battered and bruised and beaten down with 15 guys on IR. No, that was their roster. What I saw, that was it. They had 4 players who were, two who are elite. One guy had a career year in Gustav Nyquist. The other 2 players are Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi. And they had Ryan O'Reilly. After that, their top point getter had 45 points. It was Thomas Novak, and the rest of the team had less than 40. They made the playoffs. I'm not saying the Canadiens need to make the playoffs and go from worst to best. That's not what the point I'm making. The point I'm making is we have seen coaches do more with less than the Canadiens have right now because they have a talented bunch. Make no mistake, they're playing terrible. They look like they don't care, but they have some talent in this roster. Make no mistake about it. And we have seen teams do way more with way less.
Yeah,
it's just not happening.
Nashville, there's also more experience in that team, right? The other problem the Canadiens have is they have a lot of guys without a lot of experience on the team. You got 4 rookies or whatever. Right. Now. So
but you could take the Philadelphia Flyers of last year. They had a pretty young team, and they were 3 points out of a playoff spot. They fell apart at the end.
The thing is, remember it was Michel Therrien and Bergeron where they had the no excuses sign up on the wall. It's the no excuses thing. And, I was doing our Hockey Inside Out show this week with Rick Green, and he had a great line. He says, if you leave too many crutches lying around on the floor in the locker room, the players are going to pick them up. And it's a great line from somebody who played in the NHL and coached in the NHL. If you give players excuses that they can use, they're going to take them. And, we're young, we're rebuilding, in the mix. Marty St. Louis talked earlier in the year and before the season how this year would be like hard coaching would come in. It's been hard coaching with Arbor Xhekaj. There's no doubt about that. But there hasn't been hard coaching with a lot of the other guys, or a lot of the veteran guys. Kirby Dach, what he went through last season, Canadiens fans have to be thankful that he can skate now and play. He missed a full year with a major knee injury. He's -10, which I think is worse than the NHL, or right up with the worst in the NHL. It's going to take him time to come back. But, you get, the old Army is being the old Army again after, good training camp, sort of disappearing, at least offensively, no goals. And it's a case of they're running, like at some point, we're young, we're rebuilding is wearing thin. And I think we've reached pissed off fans or fans who don't care anymore or lose interest. And I think the Canadiens are in danger if this, like, fans will go, let me know when they're good again, type of thing. I think it's been so, the teams have been so used, and the fans have gotten so used to losing, and now here's yet another year. It looks like now, I mean, it's only 7 games, but this looks like a team that's going to be in the draft lottery again. And it's going to be interesting with, nobody's more plugged into the NHL than Pierre LeBrun. So it's going to be interesting to see if Kent Hughes does in fact pull off some kind of a trade in the next couple of weeks to try and shake this team up and moving forward, because I think they realize that people are starting to get frustrated also. And Jeff Molson has said right from the beginning, like when he started this rebuild, he didn't know how long the patience would last with the fans. I think he's pleasantly surprised the patience has lasted this far, but patience is starting to wear thin without a doubt.
Well, and everyone knew that, hard times were coming, and, that's not to say the last 2 years were easy, but, you had effort, you had entertainment, you had a team that at least, they weren't very good, but they played like a team. And
the entertainment value has dropped. I mean, there's the same. My buddy, the season ticket holder, he was going home after the second period. Like, I don't want to watch any more of this.
My uncle is a season ticket holder. He never leaves games early. Never. And he left Tuesday night early. And my cousin texted me. He goes, "I can't believe this. Steve got up and he left." He said, "I said, where are you going? You going to the bathroom?" And he goes, "No, I'm leaving." And they left the game early. It just goes to show, like, that's how bad the state is right now. And I gotta say, a lot of fans play a really dangerous game with this. Don't worry, just keep lose, be in the draft lottery, restock the cupboard, and there's a balance that you have to strike, because when that report came out from The Athletic or Pierre LeBrun, and that Kent Hughes is going to make a trade, this clip went viral of this guy going, preaching patience. Don't you dare make a trade. Don't give up assets. Don't do anything. Keep building through the draft and draft more players. Stock the cupboard. Look at Buffalo's been stocking the goddamn cupboard for 12 years. They got nothing to show for it. Not a single playoff appearance. Ottawa's been stalking the freaking. I almost let it fly. They've been stalking the freaking cupboard for however many years. They've got 2 playoff appearances in the past 10 years to show for it. These teams have nothing. Toronto has nothing. They haven't done shit. They've passed the first round one freaking time. And that's what you want to preach. Keep building. Sure, Toronto has all the talent in the world, but they got nothing when it comes to the playoffs. That gets you nowhere. You have to strike a balance. And, that's why I get frustrated when people go, they're not ready. I remember before when we were saying, could they sign Laine? Maybe. We were getting lit up in the comments. They'd be stupid to do that. Why are you talking about this? They don't need a player like that. And then all of a sudden they sign Laine and everyone's so excited. Oh my God, we might make the playoffs. You got to strike. You got to give the team something to play for. And they got nothing right now.
Yeah, and when they got Laine, I mean, part of the reason they got Laine, and Hughes and Gordon spoke about this, is that they thought the players, how hard they competed last year, they deserved a real chance to be in the mix, right? And Patrick Laine, a healthy Patrick Laine, if he finds his game, could do that. As Serge Savard said, like a guy who was a legitimate, big, tall, strong, great shot, a legitimate chance to maybe be the first 50 goal scorer since Stéphane Richer. So that was a huge loss, right? When he went down.
Yeah.
Who knows when he's going to be. I mean, he's walking without crutches now, so that's a good sign. But, there still has to be a certain level of patience, because, I said year 3 of the rebuild right now. And I won't judge the rebuild until after 5 years. Mm-hmm. After 5 years, to me, like this year and 2 more, then you can say, okay, did it work or didn't work? It's too early now. We don't know what's going to happen with Demonov. We don't know what's going to happen with Hage. We don't know if David Reinbacher is ever going to be healthy and be able to play here. There's a lot of question marks moving forward, right? And there's still a lot of reason for optimism moving forward. The goaltending situation is not so great right now, but you have the kid playing in the university in Boston who's going to come in, Fowler. So there's still a reason for hope moving forward. And they've stuck with their plan, Gorton and Hughes, and they will remain patient, but the patience for them is wearing thin. I think they realize this. I think they realize the team needs a little spark and the fans need a little spark. They did that with Laine. That sort of fallen through. Now they're saying 2 to 3 months. Hopefully that is what it ends up. But I think they realize this team needs another spark now. Like they need something to give them a little bit of a boost now and to give the fans a boost now. But they're not going to, they have a lot of they're not going to mortgage the future still, but they have a lot of draft picks. Like they've accumulated. I think the best thing that Ken Hughes has done is just the asset accumulation. They have so many draft picks and so many young prospects that they could put together a package now, which is something Canadiens could never really do before. Because like who did they have that anybody else wanted, right? They had 2 first-round picks again this coming year. They got some young guys in Laval. They got a lot of prospects. Arbor Jack guy we mentioned earlier. There'd be a lot of interest in him if they decide they want to trade him. I think that would be a mistake, but they need a little bit of a wake-up call, I think, is where they are right now.
Yeah, and it's good that you said there is stuff to be positive about. And you know what? As pissed off and frustrated fans are, some media members are, myself are with the team, is that the one thing that I'll say about Martin St. Louis is that I'll accept a little bit of patience with him this season, because remember last year in November when we would talk on this podcast and I was getting frustrated whenever he would talk about Slavkovsky, be like, it's coming. And, it's like he had like freaking 2 goals at the end of November or something like that. And I'm saying, okay, enough's enough. It's coming. Well, it better be here by now. When's it coming? Christmas is coming. In Hebrew or in Judaism, we say the Mashiach is coming. The Messiah is coming, so. And then it came, I had to eat my words because, Slavkovsky showed up and the team started to play well and things started to happen. So I will say that. But the problem is when Martin St. Louis was appeasing everyone and saying, it's coming with Slavkovsky. He's doing the right things. The team is not doing the right things right now. And frankly, I understand his frustration at the media today. For those who haven't seen it, he was asked a question about the state of the team. He gave an English answer and gave an answer along the sides of, why would I listen to critics who I wouldn't go to advice for?
I have the exact quote here. It was, here we go, right in front of me. You said, first of all, I said the 3 days offer, we couldn't come at a better time. They had some practice time. Then asked about the fans. He said, I don't listen to stuff. And I'll tell you why I don't listen to stuff, because why would I listen to a critic who is somebody that I would never go to for advice? Just to start there. Then he goes on and he said, it's funny because yesterday I was walking to the Bell Center going to work. And like I said, I don't listen, but there's a couple of fans that stopped me and they said, hey, don't listen to them. And Marty laughed a little bit. Then he says, keep with this, they told him. So I realized, okay, this is happening. It's part of the market, but it's not going to change what I do and it's not going to make me upset. But if it does one thing, is I'm almost thankful because I usually overcome the obstacles and the people that doubt me, and it fuels me. So I appreciate the market. So you're talking about people doubted him with Slavkovsky. I wrote a column around this time last year that Slavkovsky should be in the minors. He's not ready for the NHL. Marty St. Louis was never drafted in the NHL. A lot of people doubted him, went on to have a Hall of Fame career. So Marty's going to do what Marty's going to do. He's a confident guy, and Hughes and Gorton are confident guys too. But at some point, and this comes up again, like I was surprised when Alex Burrows stepped down this summer that they didn't bring in an experienced NHL coach to help Marty out, like the St. Louis Blues brought in Claude Julien, just to like somebody with more of a defensive mind for defensive zone coverage, or somebody from just a lean on. I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but yeah, I'm really surprised. And I asked during the offseason, early in the offseason, I asked Kent Hughes, I guess it was the postmortem, or I guess it was maybe after Burrows stepped down, like, are you going to bring in another coach? And he said, well, I'm going to talk with Marty about it and we'll see what he's comfortable with. So he's obviously comfortable with just working with the 2 guys he has now, Letowski and Stefan Robida. But at some point, does management step in and say, okay, Marty, we're putting this guy. I mean, they brought in that Grillo guy who was Marty's assistant coach at the University of Vermont, but he's also got no NHL coaching experience. I think they could really use a guy with a lot of NHL experience behind a bench, somebody who's just going to come in like Jacques Martin last year with Ottawa, like Claude Julien this year with the St. Louis Blues, just as the game comes at you fast behind the bench. And Marty's the first to admit he's still learning on the job, right? Learning on the job as an NHL head coach is not easy. And he doesn't, Letowski and Robida, neither of them have been a head coach in the NHL. Letowski was a head coach in junior. Robida went from midget AAA to assistant coach with the Canadiens. Marty went from coaching Bantam AAA or whatever it was with his kids to coaching with the Canadiens. It's a hell of a big jump. And I think they could use some help behind the bench in that way.
So what I put myself in his shoes when at first I had my initial reaction to that clip and to that quote. Then I put myself in his shoes and I'm thinking, what the hell is he supposed to answer to that? But there was just something with the way it came off was I get it because, a lot of this blame is going towards Marty. It's pretty much all going towards Martin St. Louis. And players are kind of being let off the hook for whatever reason. I think it's a conglomerate issue. I think it's a conglomeration of a lot of things that are the issue with this team. It's not just, you can't just point to one thing, but take some accountability. It came off to me, that answer, a little arrogant because you're aware of things that aren't going well, and you got to be aware that your team is not performing and it's falling on you because I get it. Again, you put yourself in his shoes. What do you want him to say? Yeah, it's all my fault, and I'm learning. I'm new. I'm this. I'm that. He knows. He's not blind to the fact. But I don't know. Something about that just rubbed me the wrong way, and it just furthers the pressure of Saturday night, of tomorrow night.
Well, for the first time since he became coach here, it's sort of been a love affair, right, with the fans and the media and the players and everybody with Marty St. Louis. And every love affair sort of wears off after a while, right? So I'm not the media hasn't turned on Marty. I still think but we're questioning him more now, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's like I mentioned to him today about Arber Xhekaj. I said, was he going to be in the lineup tomorrow, I guess, after Barron? He said, yeah. And I said, well, what? I said, I have my transcribed quotes here in front of me. I said, what do you want to see from him? He says, I expect a better version. So I said, well, what is the better version? And he says, what do you think it is? So I threw it back at me. So I said, well, I'll cut down on the defensive mistakes, I guess. And he said, staying alert, staying consistent is what he wants him to do. And then, I asked him, I spoke with Arber last Friday, it was a week ago. I sat with him one-on-one in the locker room, and he, asked him what was going on. And he said, I'm too much in my head. I'm too worried about mistakes. I got to tune out the outside noise. Like, he's lost his swagger, right? He's not the sheriff now. Yeah. He's going out there being afraid to make mistakes. And so I asked Marty again.
He's playing like he's the cadet out there.
Yeah. So I said to Marty again, I said, like, as a coach, how do you help Xhekaj get out of his head and not be so worried about making mistakes? And his answer, I have it transcribed here, is, you should be worried about making some mistakes, right? St. Louis said he's not a rookie anymore, so you should be. I got to be better. Very simple. It's not like we nitpick everything he does, but he's got to be better. I expect Xhekaj to be a better version, and he's not a rookie, but he's played 100 games, right? So he's equivalent of his sophomore, and the way he reacts to mistakes with Arber and the way he reacts to mistakes with Barron or Lane Hutson or some of the other guys, it doesn't seem the same way. And you wonder if there's some kind of a personal friction there between these two guys or what's going on. But, to get back to the thing, it's for the first time since he took over, media are questioning him now. And fans, there's some fans are questioning him right from day one. But, I still think Marty's was the right guy to hire this and the right guy to be the development coach and the teacher, and the guys were buying everything he was selling and everything else. But again, I think he can use some help right now. I think somebody else to lean. I think Luke Richardson was a big loss for the Canadiens when he left, because although he didn't have NHL head coaching experience before he went to Chicago, he was a head coach in the AHL, very calm, cool, collected type guy, smart guy, somebody to lean on a little bit if you needed some help, somebody to maybe help you slow the game down a bit from your view from behind the bench. And things are moving fast for Marty right now, right? The team, like he's saying only 7 games, but in the back of his mind, he's got to be thinking, man, we got to win at least one of these games this Saturday, Sunday, or say they're off Monday, but Tuesday, I said, again, if they lose 2 more games in a row, the questions are going to get more difficult, and there's going to be more questions about what's going on with this team and why, especially if the compete level's not there again. That's the biggest concern for me with this team, as you said, just the compete level and the entertainment value, as we mentioned earlier, are down this year. That's not good.
It's just to go back to the 7 games thing, because it is only 7 games, but this time next week, 7 games turns to 11 games, and then the week after that, it turns to 14 games. Like, I'm looking at the schedule.
The season fast, man. It goes fast. It comes at you really, really quick.
And if you look at last year, I remember the end of the season, just because we're going to play the game of that the Canadiens are in the mix. If they end up in the mix, let's say, how much do you think they'll be kicking themselves for this start of the season? They missed the playoffs by 1 point. Are people going to remember the start of the season?
No, of course. Yeah.
Missed the playoffs by 2 points. People going to remember the start of the season? I think they will. Mm-hmm. And I think the Canadiens are going to be really mad at themselves because they will have achieved their objective, sure. However, the context in which it happened really matters in that case. So they got to play it's a very careful game you got to play with. It's only this amount of games. Every point matters in the NHL. The Philadelphia Flyers, who were supposed to be a lottery team last year, missed the playoffs by 3 points. Nobody was expecting that. And, maybe inside of that room they were. There were all these teams at the end of the season last year. They were in the mix legitimately. And it just seemed like in the last 10 games, none of them wanted to make it. It was, Detroit, the Islanders who did make it, Pittsburgh, Washington who ended up making it, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and New Jersey. All these teams were legitimately in the mix. And they missed the playoffs by, a couple games here and there. They're kicking them. They were probably kicking themselves knowing we could have done that. And, that's just my cautionary tale to say to the fans who agree with Marty and saying, "Oh, it's only 7 games. Let's pump the brakes here." I don't know. It's
who's the NFL coach who said they are who we thought they were?
The
Arizona
a bunch of years ago, the Arizona Cardinals coach. Yeah,
but in a lot of ways, the Canadiens are what I thought they were this season. Like coming into the season, to me, the two biggest question marks were goaltending and defense. I wasn't sold going into the season on Caden Primo as an NHL goalie. I've mentioned before, I thought Sam Mountable can be a number 1 goalie, give your team a chance to win every night. I'm not sure if that's the case with Primo, and we've seen that so far this year, and Mountable has sort of been hot and cold. And defense, they're just so young, right? And there's going to be so many young mistakes. And, Jonathan Kovacevic, one of the guys who left, who they got rid of, he's got 1 goal, 4 assists, in 10 games with the doubles. He's +3. He was sort of an underrated guy here, right? Sort of a stabilizing, didn't do anything fancy, took care of his own end, toughened the boards, got the puck out, experienced guy. They lack so much experience on defense, and they're going to make so many mistakes. Lane Hutson, everybody's freaking out about Lane Hutson, rightfully so. He's incredibly talented, but that giveaway he had against the Rangers, there's going to be more like that, right? The way he's carrying the puck. Totally. It's going to happen more and more often. He's going to make more and more mistakes. Justin Barron, lots of mistakes. So many young defense. There's going to be so many mistakes, but I thought they would be better offensively, even without line-A. Like, I didn't think you'd have 8 forwards with 3 goals combined after 7 games. Like, I thought that would be better. I knew Kirby Dach would have a hard time coming back, but I thought he'd be more productive than he has been. I didn't think Alex Newhook would have 1 goal after 7 games. I thought Armia would feed off of the strong finish he had last season and wouldn't have 0 goals after 7 games. And it's just, and Dvorak, I mean, I figured if he's healthy, maybe we'll finally see. And he just looks like the Christian Dvorak that we've seen since he got here. Mm-hmm. So goaltending and defense I thought would struggle, but I didn't think the offense would be as bad as it's been. And you combine those 3 things together. If you're struggling in goal, you're struggling on defense, and you can't score, you don't have a very good hockey team.
So, it's simple math there.
Yeah.
I'm not even a math guy, and I know that.
Yeah.
But, the thing I'll say about Lane Hutson, people are freaking out, and you know what? They have the right to freak out. And, this is one of the points I agreed with Tony, and I don't know if he said it. He probably said it on the podcast, but he definitely said it in that radio hit was, that giveaway against the Rangers that directly led to a goal. Riley Smith scored. Yeah, that's on Lane Hutson.
Mm-hmm.
But Montembeault, make a save. Give us one. Give us one. So, but that's not me protecting Lane Hutson because he's actually, he's not Arbor Jacka. He doesn't have 100 games of experience. This is his first season in NHL, and he's only going to learn the hard way. A player like that will only learn the hard way, and he has to make those mistakes. Those are important mistakes for him to make.
He'll learn you can't make that move when you're the last guy back.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
If his partner's beside you or behind you, okay, you might try that. But when you're the last guy back, you can't make that move. You just can't. Not in the NHL. Not against a veteran team like the Rangers, an experienced team like that. But you're right. I mean, the leash that Marty has given Hutson is. Those leashes, I don't know. The retractable ones that go like 100 feet out and then you can reel them back in. I think that's what Lane Hutson's got. And I think Arbor Jacka has a choker chain that just gets yanked and stays right by the coach's side. So different strokes for different folks. I mean, I don't know how well that goes over in the locker room too. Like, why is this guy allowed to make so many mistakes and I'm not, type of thing. But with Lane Hutson, he's been a bright spot. I mean, he's had 2 games where he's -4, but he's been a bright spot. You see, he's not totally overmatched defensively. He's not totally overmatched physically. He competes like crazy. I mean, he's got Brendan Gallagher's work ethic. He's going to be once he puts on another 10, 15 pounds, he's going to be a very, very good defenseman in the NHL and for the Canadiens. But for now, there's going to be a lot of growing pains, and with so many young defense, it's Mike Matheson and David Savard and a bunch of kids. That's what they got.
Well, and the other thing about Lane Hutson, he's such a smart player that it's just he's making plays by what he knows. Because it's funny, I had this conversation with someone, and I said it's amazing that Lane Hutson is doing these things at the NHL level when he's never played professional hockey in his life. Well, now it's starting to show that he hasn't played professional hockey in his entire life because he's making mistakes of a guy who thinks he could pull off these moves against professional hockey players when you can't always do that. So that's going to come with time, and that's okay. I'm okay with him making these mistakes because eventually the benefits of him making these moves and playing the way he does are going to way far and surpass the drawbacks of it.
Yeah, and the other thing we were talking about injuries before, like also, talking about defense, like the loss of Caden Gooley is massive. Massive. He hasn't even skated since he was injured. Plays monster minutes and plays against the other team's top line, basically the whole game. And before he got hurt, Marty had split up him and Matheson because he wanted to have one of them on the ice 2/3 of the time, or more than that, right? He wanted to have guys who can go up against the other team's top lines, and losing Gooley has just been huge. Like now you got the young guys going up. They had Hutson and Mayu paired together against the Rangers. 10 games of NHL experience between them, going up. Like that's a recipe for disaster, right? That's not going to end well. 2 kids with 10 games of NHL experience going up against that team, and it didn't end well. But that's the growing pains these guys are going to go through, and they're going to hurt even more without Caden Gooley there to log the 23 minutes of ice time or whatever game he does against the other team's best line. And so now you're getting Hutson against those guys and Mayu against those guys and Arbor Jacka against those guys. So the mistakes the longer Gooley's out of the lineup, the more the mistakes on defense are going to pile up.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing is just, I know it's important. Caden Gooley's, not just an important player to this. He's an essential player to this team.
And he can't stay healthy though. Now it's becoming a big concern. Like he just gets hurt all the time.
Yeah. That used to be that was a concern with Cole Caulfield. I remember when he signed that contract can he play 82 games? And he did last year. That spotlight is going to start to shine on Caden Gooley, unfortunately for him. But he, for all intents and purposes, he's an essential player to this team. Oh, yeah. So I get that. But you've been dealing with this injury bug and bad luck for however many years now. Let's adjust. Let's adjust and learn how to deal with it. Because there's a limit. There's a limit.
I mean, you go into the game with the Rangers. You don't have Patrick Laine. You don't have Juraj Slafkovsky. You don't have Caden Gooley. Who am I leaving out here? Your goaltending.
But that's shaky. The type of game. Yeah. That's the type of game you got to tighten up. Maybe let's not play so openly offensive, fluid. That. Maybe that's the game. Let's keep it together here, guys.
Maybe let's go to a zone defense in our own end instead of the hybrid system.
Let's running around like chickens with our heads.
Calm it down a little bit, right? Let's make it just a little bit more simple. Let's simplify the game for these guys, so you don't get run out and blown out at home. It's Canadiens fans went through so much time where that sort of boring defensive type of hockey, but Canadiens fans also want the team to win, right?
Yeah,
losing hockey is pretty boring too. So moving forward. You wonder if it's excuse me.
Bless you.
Moving forward, you wonder if at some point is it Hughes who steps in and says to Marty, "Look, you got to simplify things here. Like this is not working. We can't keep giving up 6-7 goals every game. And with the goaltending we have, it's not Carey Price back there. It's as I said, they were giving up the most shots in the NHL, and last season they were the third most. Like this is the same problems keep happening over and over. They give up too many shots. They don't get enough shots, and they can't score enough goals. It's the trifecta that's going to kill you.
Well, and that's just it. It's just adjust. You got the Rangers coming to town. You got this big ceremony before. Yeah, okay, boys, we're injured. Let's really keep it together. We got to play a tight game tonight. I'm not going to say mistake-free hockey because that's not our style, but maybe let's limit the risks a little bit on the on pinching and on bringing the puck up the ice. Let's maybe instead of 4 out of 10 instead of 4 out of 10 times choosing the safe play, maybe let's choose the safe play 6 out of 10 times, maybe 7. Just let's really we don't want to get embarrassed in our own building here.
Yeah, and the thing is, they were embarrassed and. Before the game against the Rangers, Marty was asked, like, what should the players take away from seeing all these older guys on the ice, or all these guys? Like, there's so many Stanley Cup rings. It's like it's a joke. Like Chris and I always joke, I only have one Stanley Cup ring. I'd be like a loser when I'm around all these alumni. But I have the quote here in front of me, what Marty said. He says, to me, whenever I see the older guys, there's a sense of pride. They're very proud that they wore the jersey. You can see it. You can feel it. It's in their blood. To me, I want my players to have that pride. And it's a lot easier to be proud of something when you've had success, right? So for me, we're chasing that. Where was that pride that night? Where you see all these guys come out to center ice. And some people criticize the Canadiens for keeping going back to the past and honoring their past. And they can't overdo it, or in the past they have maybe overdone it.
They have overdone it.
But these guys aren't getting younger. Like when they were coming out there, they're old men, these guys. They're not going to be around, sadly, for another 25 years. You sort of have to embrace who and what they were while they're still here and have that hopefully rub off on the guys who are here. And it certainly didn't rub off the other night to see all those guys and then to come out and be down 4-0 11 minutes into the game. I would have left them in sitting with those guys in the loge they were in and just hear what they were saying and what they were thinking. Like, how does this happen? How has this sweater that we were so proud to wear? I mean, I understand it was a different day and age, and you could never have that team with today's salary cap and that, but you can still play with some pride, right? And the Canadiens, that game they didn't play with a lot of pride, I don't think.
There was the coach of the New England Patriots after this week's loss to Jackson, or last week's at this point, this loss to Jacksonville. This big talking point over in Boston was he called his team soft. And I remember Martin St. Louis did that last year. And that raised some eyebrows. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think soft is the right word. It's just because it's when you play soft, at least you're playing the game. You're going to be apprehensive to take a hit, and you're not going to fight back. But what is it? Just when you don't, right from puck drop, you just don't care. What is it?
I mean, a coach only has so many bullets in the gun, right? You can't freak out after every single game. But Tony's rant there on his radio thing. One of the things when he said, throw the water bottle or do something.
But that's it.
I thought in his news conference after that game, Marty came out and his first thing was, we had a good first shift, and we almost scored, and the puck went down the other end, and they scored. So it wasn't a good – you're down 1-0, but he was sort of trying to put that positive spin on it again. And going back to what Rick Green said, if you leave too many crutches lying around, the players are going to grab them. It would have been a good night, I think, for him not to go ballistic.
Of course.
But just to come out and say, that was unacceptable. It should have been – that was totally unacceptable. With these great guys in the rink – and that kind of thing, that was embarrassing for our team to come out and put out a performance like that. It's unacceptable. I'm not happy. Not throwing water bottles, just very straightforward saying this is.
Just be firm into the point.
Just be firm and let them know this is unacceptable to come out with that lack of effort on home ice after that ceremony. It's unacceptable. And he did it last year in Boston, when he said they were tough. He didn't do it in front of, in the world, there's maybe 4 or 5 media guys there. It's not like when it's in Montreal. But you can't just, after a loss like that, just come out and say, we had a good first shift, and, we almost scored here, and we almost did this, and we almost did this, and, we shot ourselves in the foot, and it's hard to win when you're down 3-0 before the first TV timeout. Well, you shouldn't be down 3-0 at a first TV timeout, right? It's so I thought that I was I don't know, disappointed. I was surprised that Marty didn't go into that. And we waited a long time. It was a long wait before he came out. So maybe he was cooling down. Maybe he was freaking out in the coach's room and he needed to calm down a bit before he saw us. But I thought it would have been a good news conference for him to just say this is unacceptable.
Because it's just disingenuous at that point, because you could see the bullshit leaving from his teeth. You know what I mean? You could feel it. It doesn't. You can't look at someone and say that. After educated. All you guys in the media room. Hockey. You watch hockey for a living. The game. You can't look at people in the face and say that. That's all it is.
I just thought it was.
There's spin and then there's BS.
And as I said, there's only so many bullets in the gun for a coach. You can't. If you do that every game, they tune it out. But when you do it, it worked last year when he called them soft in Boston. They seemed to bounce after that. And as I said, I thought it was just a time to basically to voice how unacceptable it was, and he didn't do it.
Well. We'll see. You know what? We'll see. We'll see how unacceptable it was tomorrow night. That's when we'll see how unacceptable it was, because they had 4 days off. Yeah. What was it? 3 days of practice. So, I mean, you know what I mean by 4 days.
Yeah, and Marty gave him a day off yesterday because the back-to-backs are coming up, and some people were freaking out about that. But, it's a long, hard season, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Rest is a weapon thing. It is at times. So, give the guys a day off to practice today. They'll have a morning skate tomorrow, but they got to they got to show up tomorrow night. They got to bear down. They got to show up, and they got to get off to a good start, because Marty keeps saying, is it a one-off or is it a habit? That's one of his favorite lines. It's becoming a habit, these slow starts, and it's becoming a habit, this lack of compete level, and it's becoming a habit losing, and they got to try and nip it in the bud here.
So, and their first chance to do it is tomorrow against the St. Louis Blues at 7:00. Stu, it's been a fantastic episode. Thank you very much for joining me, as you always do. And like I said, I'm gonna be off for the next couple of weeks, but I'll see you when I see you.
All right, have a great weekend.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. Just a reminder before we let you go, Tony has started a French episode of the Sick Podcast. French episodes are every Friday afternoon. The first one is already on our YouTube page. You could go catch it. He was with, hold on. Who was he with? Phil Boucher and Sammy, help me out in the chat here. Come on, I'm struggling. And Anthony Marcotte. Thank you, Sammy. So Phil Boucher, Anthony Marcotte on the first episode. They did a Habs roundtable. So go check that out after this episode. And if you haven't already, check out Tony's rant that he had on BPM Sport. Really good stuff. Thank you, Stu. Once again, I'm Matt Ohayon for Sammy and Juliana back at Master Control. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.